March 19, 2024, Renton, Washington. An 18-year-old with 2 totaled cars already under his belt decides to floor his Audi sedan one more time. 112 miles per hour in a 40 zone. Not for an emergency, for the thrill. He never touches the brake, never swerves. In 3 seconds, he erases an entire family from existence. Andrea Hudson, 38 years old, mother of 6. Boyd, her 12-year-old son. Matilda and Eloise, her twin daughters, both 13, gone. 2 other children in the backseat are fighting for their lives in intensive care. Chase Daniel Jones walks away with a scratch on his cheek. And every single detail you're about to hear has been verified through court documents, King County Superior Court records, and sentencing testimony from April 2025. If you've never heard this case before, prepare yourself, because what unfolded in that Renton courtroom will challenge everything you think you know about justice, forgiveness, and whether a teenager who kills 4 people in a single moment of recklessness deserves a second chance. This wasn't his first crash. It wasn't even his second. In the 12 months before March 19th, Chase had already destroyed 2 vehicles speeding. A police officer had pulled him over, looked him in the eye, warned him about the danger, and let him go. No ticket, no suspension, no consequences. Until now. A warm Tuesday afternoon. Andrea is driving her silver minivan with 6 kids inside, 3 of them her own, 3 of them friends. They're heading home, talking about homework, weekend plans, what's for dinner. At the intersection of 140th Avenue Southeast and Southeast 192nd Street, the light turns red. Andrea stops. 3 blocks away, Chase is already weaving through traffic, using the center turn lane to pass cars like it's a personal racetrack. He sees the red light, doesn't slow down. The Audi's black box later reveals the truth. Full throttle, 0 braking, no attempt to swerve. The impact is so violent, the minivan spins sideways, flips in midair, and slams into 2 parked cars before wrapping around a utility pole. Metal shrieks. Glass explodes. Inside, chaos, screams. Then silence. First responders describe it as the worst scene they've ever witnessed. Andrea is pronounced dead at the scene. Boyd, Matilda, and Eloise never make it to the hospital. Nolan and Charlotte are airlifted to Harborview Medical Center, fighting for their lives. Chase stumbles out with minor bruises. He stares at the wreckage, at the child's backpack lying in the street. 4 dead, 2 critical, and he's standing there, perfectly fine. If someone you loved was in that van, wouldn't you demand justice? Subscribe so you don't miss the twist that comes in the courtroom before the judge decides. Let's first go back to the scene because this story will not be complete without it. Paramedics swarmed the wreckage, cutting through twisted metal to reach Nolan and Charlotte. Both were unconscious, bleeding, barely breathing. One firefighter found a family photo wedged against the dashboard, Andrea, smiling, arms wrapped around all 6 kids at a birthday party 2 months earlier. He tucked it into his pocket, unable to look at it. Within the hour, Nolan and Charlotte were airlifted to Harborview Medical Center. Fractured skulls, internal bleeding, broken bones. Doctors worked frantically, but the prognosis was grim. The next 48 hours would determine if they'd survive at all. Abe Hudson got the call at work. A voice he didn't recognize. Calm. Too calm. There's been an accident. Multiple fatalities. You need to come now. He drove in a fog, hands shaking, praying it was a mistake. Maybe Andrea was hurt, but okay. Maybe the kids were just shaken up. Maybe. Then he saw the intersection. The mangled minivan. The police tape. A child's sneaker lying in the road. That sneaker belonged to Boyd. A paramedic walked toward him, and Abe knew. Andrea, Boyd, Matilda, Eloise, gone. The word hit him like a freight train. His wife, his children, erased in 3 seconds because some teenager couldn't stop racing. At the hospital, Abe sat beside Nolan's bed, gripping his son's hand. The boy's face was swollen beyond recognition, machines breathing for him. Abe whispered through tears, "I'm here. You're going to make it. I promise." But Nolan didn't respond. His pulse was faint, His chest rose and fell with mechanical precision. And somewhere across town, Chase Daniel Jones was going home. Uninjured, unpunished. Abe stared at his son's broken body and made a vow. When this went to trial, he would make sure Chase understood exactly what he had stolen.
I hate Tuesdays. The crash happened on a Tuesday. I hate the 19th of every month, regardless of what day of the week it is. I absolutely hate coming home from work and finding my wife alone in the bedroom, looking at pictures and crying for her lost son.
But would a courtroom ever deliver real justice for 4 innocent lives? To understand that answer, you need to know who Chase Daniel Jones really was. 18 years old, no criminal record. On paper, just another teenager. But behind the wheel, he was a different person entirely. March 2023, Chase totals his first car, wrapping it around a telephone pole at 80 miles per hour. His parents buy him another one. No consequences, no suspension, just a lecture and a replacement vehicle. 6 months later, he destroys the second car racing through a residential neighborhood. Again, no charges. His father covers the damage, pulls some strings, and Chase walks away untouched. A police officer pulls him over in February 2024, clocking him at 95 inches, a 40 zone. The officer stares at him through the window, shaking his head. "You're going to kill someone driving like this." Chase nods, apologizes, promises it won't happen again. The officer lets him go with a warning. 1 month later, Andrea Hudson is dead. At home, Chase's life was fractured. His parents were divorcing, bitter and distracted. He bounced between houses, spent nights alone, poured his anger into the gas pedal. Speed became his escape, his way of feeling something when everything else felt numb. But that escape came with a price. And on March 19th, 4 innocent people paid it. Now, 1 year later, Chase would finally face what he'd been running from his entire life. The question was, would he break, or would he hide behind excuses one more time? April 2025, King County Superior Court. 1 year after the crash. The courtroom was packed. Families on one side, faces etched with grief. Chase Daniel Jones on the other, flanked by his attorney, head down, shoulders slumped. On the prosecution's table sat 4 framed photographs. Andrea, Boyd, Matilda, Eloise, smiling, alive, a reminder of what could never be returned. The judge called the hearing to order. This wasn't a trial to determine guilt. Chase had already pleaded guilty to 4 counts of vehicular homicide and 2 counts of vehicular assault. This was sentencing. The families would finally have their chance to speak directly to the person who destroyed their lives. Abe Hudson stood first. His hands trembled as he gripped the podium. For a moment, he couldn't speak, just stared at Chase, who refused to meet his eyes. "My wife Andrea," Abe began, voice cracking. "She was the strongest person I knew. She loved our kids more than anything in this world, and you took her from me in 3 seconds. He paused, steadying himself. Boyd was 12. He wanted to be an engineer. Matilda and Eloise, my twin girls, 13 years old. They had their whole lives ahead of them. Birthdays, graduations, weddings. Grandchildren I'll never meet." Abe's voice rose, anger breaking through the grief. "And you? You walked away with a scratch. You went home that night. You slept in your bed, while I planned 4 funerals." Chase's head sank lower. His lawyer placed a hand on his shoulder, but Chase didn't move. Andrea's mother stood next. Her voice was quieter, but the pain was just as raw. "I held my daughter's hand as she took her first breath, and I never got to hold it when she took her last." Tears streamed down her face. "You didn't just kill my daughter, you killed my grandchildren. You killed the future of our entire family." Then came Andrea's sister. Her anger was palpable. "You had 2 wrecked cars. You had warnings. You had every chance to stop. But you didn't care. You never cared." She pointed at Chase. "Look at me. Look at what you did." Chase lifted his head slightly, eyes red, but he couldn't hold her gaze. He looked back down. One by one, family members spoke. Some demanded the maximum sentence. Others struggled to even form words through their sobs. The courtroom was suffocating with grief, every testimony peeling back another layer of devastation. Then Chase's lawyer stood. He read from a prepared statement, his tone formal, detached.
I apologize for the unimaginable pain and suffering I've caused your families. I used the pedal to put all my emotions into which turned out to be the biggest mistake of my life.
Mr. Jones wishes to express his deepest remorse for the unimaginable pain and suffering he has caused. He takes full responsibility for his actions. He used the pedal to pour all his emotions into, which turned out to be the biggest mistake of his life. The words felt hollow, rehearsed. Chase sat silent, hands covering his face. Abe stood again, this time without permission, voice shaking with fury. Remorse? You want us to believe he's remorseful? He's had a year to say something, a year to apologize. And now he hides behind a lawyer's statement? The judge raised a hand, restoring order, but the damage was done. The room buzzed with tension. Then something unexpected happened. Chase began to cry. Not quiet tears, loud, body-shaking sobs. His hands fell from his face, revealing eyes filled with anguish. He looked directly at Abe, at Andrea's mother, at the photos on the table. "I'm sorry," he choked out, voice barely audible. "I'm so sorry. I can't take it back. I wish I could. I wish it was me instead." The courtroom fell silent. Some family members softened. Others remained stone-faced, unmoved. Was this genuine remorse? Or was this just a teenager realizing the consequences of his actions for the first time? The judge leaned forward, studying Chase carefully. The sentencing decision would come down to one question. Did Chase Daniel Jones deserve mercy, or did he deserve to feel every ounce of the pain he had caused? Then, in the silence, Andrea's mother stood. Her name was Grace. She was 64 years old, a retired schoolteacher who had raised Andrea to believe in second chances. She walked slowly to the front of the courtroom, her steps deliberate, her face unreadable. The prosecutor glanced at her, confused. She wasn't scheduled to speak again. Grace turned to face Chase. He looked up at her, eyes still wet, bracing for more anger, more condemnation. But what came next shocked everyone. "I forgive you." The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. The courtroom froze. Abe's head snapped toward her, disbelief written across his face. Andrea's sister stood, shaking her head. Other family members gasped, whispered, some recoiling as if the words themselves were a betrayal. Grace's voice trembled but remained steady. "I forgive you because holding on to this anger will destroy me. It won't bring Andrea back. It won't bring my grandchildren back. But maybe, just maybe, it can stop me from becoming as broken as you are." She paused, tears streaming down her face. "I don't forgive you because you deserve it. I forgive you because I need to let go. I need to be able to sleep at night. I need to be able to remember my daughter's smile without seeing your face." Chase's breathing became ragged. His chest heaved. He tried to speak, but no words came out. Not everyone in the room shared Grace's sentiment. Abe stood, voice sharp and cutting. "Forgive him? How can you forgive him? He stole everything from us. Everything." His voice broke. "I can't forgive him. I won't." Andrea's sister turned away, arms crossed, refusing to even look at Chase. Others nodded in agreement, their expressions hardened by grief and rage. The courtroom split down the middle, forgiveness on one side, justice on the other. Chase collapsed forward, head hitting the table, shoulders shaking violently. His sobs echoed through the room, raw and guttural. His lawyer reached for him, but Chase pulled away, hands covering his face, unable to look at anyone. Was this the moment Chase finally understood the weight of what he'd done? Or was this just guilt crashing down on a teenager who never thought he'd have to face real consequences? Grace stood there, watching him fall apart, and for a brief moment, something flickered across her face. Not satisfaction, not relief, just exhaustion. The judge cleared his throat, calling the room back to order. The most critical moment was coming. Would forgiveness change the sentence, or would justice demand its price regardless? The judge straightened in his chair, adjusting his glasses as he reviewed the sentencing guidelines one final time. The courtroom held its breath. Chase sat motionless, hands trembling on the table. Grace had returned to her seat, eyes closed, silently praying. Abe stared straight ahead, jaw clenched, waiting. The judge began. Mr. Jones, you have pleaded guilty to 4 counts of vehicular homicide and 2 counts of vehicular assault. The evidence is clear. You were driving at 112 miles per hour in a 40-mile-per-hour zone. You ran a red light without braking. You had multiple prior incidents of reckless driving, and yet you continued to make the same choices. Chase's breathing quickened. His lawyer placed a steadying hand on his arm. This court has heard from the victims' families. Their pain is immeasurable, their loss irreversible. And while I acknowledge your expression of remorse today, remorse does not undo the consequences of your actions. The judge paused, letting the weight of his words settle.
I am going to follow the agreed recommendation and impose the following on counts 1, 2, 3, and 4, 210 months to run concurrent with each other and concurrent with counts 5 and 6. On counts 5 and 6, 84 months to run concurrent with each other and concurrent with counts 1 through 4. 18 months of community custody on counts, at all counts, that will enter in no contact with the families of Hudson's, Wilcoxons, and Browns. Restitution, with my understanding, is to be determined at a later date.
Your offender score is 10. The standard sentencing range for your crimes is 17.5 to 23.5 years. After careful consideration of all factors presented, I sentence you to 210 months, 17.5 years in state prison for the 4 counts of vehicular homicide. For the 2 counts of vehicular assault, I sentence you to 84 months to run concurrently with your homicide sentence. The courtroom erupted. Gasps, sobs. A few family members nodded, though their faces showed no relief. Others shook their heads, unsatisfied. Abe sat frozen, processing the number. 17.5 years. It would never be enough. Nothing would bring Andrea, Boyd, Matilda, and Eloise back. Chase's face went pale. His eyes widened in disbelief. When he got out, he would be nearly 36 years old. His entire youth gone. His lawyer whispered something to him, but Chase didn't respond. He just stared at the judge, the reality crashing down on him in waves. Then, slowly, his expression changed. The disbelief faded. His shoulders slumped. Acceptance. He looked over at Abe, at Grace, at the photos still sitting on the prosecution's table. He nodded slightly, as if finally understanding the magnitude of what he had stolen. Grace pulled out a small, framed photo from her purse, the same one found in the wreckage. Andrea, with all 6 kids at the birthday party. She passed it to the woman sitting next to her, who held it for a moment before passing it along. One by one, family members touched the photo, held it close, whispered goodbyes. When it reached Abe, he clutched it tightly, tears streaming down his face. He kissed the image of his wife, his children, then held it to his chest. The bailiff stepped forward. Chase stood, hands cuffed. As he was led out, he turned back one last time, looking at the families. His lips moved, forming the words, "I'm sorry" once more, though no sound came out. The judge addressed the courtroom one final time. This sentence will not bring back the lives lost, but it serves as a reminder that actions have consequences. The gavel struck. Court adjourned. But for the Hudson family, the real sentence had no end date. 6 months after sentencing, Abe Hudson sat in his living room, surrounded by silence. The house felt too big now, too empty. Nolan and Charlotte had slowly recovered, physically at least. Nolan walked with a limp. Charlotte still had nightmares, waking up screaming about the sound of metal colliding. They were alive. But they would never be the same kids who climbed into that minivan on March 19th, 2024. Abe looked at the family photo on the mantle, the one from the birthday party. Andrea's smile, Boyd's laughter. Matilda and Eloise, frozen in time, forever 13. He would never stop missing them. The grief didn't fade. It just became something he learned to carry. Across the state, Chase Daniel Jones sat alone in his prison cell. The walls were gray. The days blurred together. He had 17 and a half years ahead of him, but time moved differently now. Slower, heavier. He thought about Andrea every day, about Boyd, Matilda, Eloise, about the moment the Audi hit the minivan and everything changed forever. Was he truly sorry? Or was he just sorry he got caught? He asked himself that question often. Some days, he believed his remorse was real. Other days, he wondered if he was just scared of spending his life in a cage. Meanwhile, out on the streets, teenagers still raced, still filmed themselves going 100 miles per hour for TikTok views, still believed they were invincible, until they weren't. This case should have been a warning, a wake-up call. But how many more families would have to be destroyed before people stopped treating the road like a game? Grace had forgiven Chase. Abe never would. Both were valid. Both were human. The only question that mattered now was this: what will it take to stop the next Chase Daniel Jones? If this story made you angry, drop a comment. Do you think 17 and a half years was justice, or should reckless drivers face harsher consequences? And if someone you know drives like Chase did, show them this story before it's too late.